Hi loves, welcome back to my channel. I am Chinwendu. In case you are hearing my voice for the very first time, hi, you are welcome to my channel. Please consider joining this beautiful family by hitting the subscribe button. Turn on your post notification to get notified once I upload a new video. And if you are an OG, hi, you are also welcome. In today's video, we are going to be learning how to make a Victorian corset with a basque waistline. So these are the materials I'm going to be needing. The measurements you are going to be needing are the shoulder measurements, your vertical and your horizontal measurements. So this is going to be a bodice, okay? So guys, I have my vertical and horizontal measurements written on this paper. So now we are going to be drafting out the pattern, okay? So guys, from the top of my pattern paper, I'm going to measure down to half an inch. This automatically becomes my starting line for these corsets, and that would also serve as my shoulder line. Now place your tape on this shoulder line and mark down to your bust points. Measure out your under bust points, your waistline, and then the hip length. Okay, so my bust point here is 11 inches, my under bust point is 15, the waistline is 18, and the length, which is the hip line, is 26 inches. I'm going to go ahead and square up my line, and once I am done with this, we are going back to the starting line. Now on this starting line, go ahead and divide your shoulder measurement into two. Whatever you have, add up half an inch for stitching allowance. On that same shoulder point, you're going to come down by 1 inch for your shoulder slope, and then I'm marking out 8 inches from this shoulder slope, okay, which is going to be my chest line. Now to get the chest line, you're going to have to divide your bust circumference by 6 and add up 1.5 inches. Now this line is my armhole depth, and the other line becomes my chest line. So once I am done with this, I like to label all my lines so that I won't in any way get myself confused by the time I start drafting out this corset. Okay, now once you are done with that, go ahead on the shoulder line again, and then mark out your neck width and your neck depth. Here I'm using 3.5 inches for my neck width, and the depth I'm making use of 4 inches. Bear in mind that this is for my front neckline. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and square up the line just like this, and then once I am done with that, I'll use my curve ruler to connect my neckline, and then connect this same line into the shoulder slope just like this. Now once I am done with this, I'm going back to my armhole depth. I will divide my armhole depth into two. Whatever I have right there, I'll mark. For me, I have 4 inches. Now from that same line, I'm going to go in by half an inch. Okay, and next thing I'm going to do is on the bust point line, I'm going to divide the client's nipple to nipple measurement by 2. I would add up half an inch for sewing allowance, and I would go ahead and mark it on the bust point, the under bust point, waistline, and then the hip line. And once I am done, I'm going to go ahead and use my straight ruler to connect the lines. Okay, now on the bust point line, go ahead and come down by 1 inch, and this is where our dart for the front usually starts, and then it's going to end on 2 inches above the hip line. Okay, now on the waistline, go ahead and mark out 1 inch for your dart intake. Okay, so I'm going to share it equally on both sides, half an inch on the center front, and on the side front I'll take half an inch as well, and then I would go ahead and connect my dart legs just like this. Okay, now once you are done with that, we're going to go ahead on the chest line and square the line over to the center front, okay? And once you are done, you are going to go up from the chest line again by 2 inches, because this is going to be like an off shoulder, okay? Now we are going to go over to the shoulder to divide whatever we have on the shoulder by 2. So whatever it is you have right there, divide it and then mark the middle point and then connect it into the bust point line. Okay, so you guys, I hope you guys are with me. And on the 2 inches above the chest line, I'm going to tighten my over bust, okay, to avoid any form of gaping, and I'm going to make use of 1.5 inches. In this case, I'm going to share it equally on both the center front and the side front. So I'm making use of 3/4 of an inch, and I'll go ahead and connect it to the bust point line. Now, once I am done with this, I'm going to go over to the chest line again, and I will divide my bust circumference by 4. Okay, so for this client, after I divided her bust circumference, what I had was 9 inches. Now I'm going to replace this over bust tightening, the dart that I removed for the over bust, replace it and place your mark. Repeat the same thing on the bust point line, and then we are going to leave the under bust and go down to the waistline. Now on the waistline, go ahead and divide your waist circumference by 4. Whatever it is that you have right there, you are going to go ahead and replace the dart, which is 1 inch dart that you took out. Replace it and make your mark. Okay, now once you are done with that, go down to the hip line and you go ahead and divide your hip circumference by 4. Whatever you have right there, go ahead and mark. And once you are done, use your ruler to connect all the lines together, just like you can see me doing. Okay, so now we are going to go back to the under bust line. Okay, what we are going to do is to go ahead and divide your under bust circumference by 4. Whatever it is that you have, check the dart that you took out from there and then place it. Okay, now after you place it, from that your under bust circumference mark, okay, after you divide by 4, go ahead and note what is left there. Okay, so for mine, what is left is 1.75. So I'm going to share it equally on both the center front and the side front. So on the side front, I'm going to be marking out 1.5 inches, and on the center front, I'm going to mark out 0.25 inches. And please guys, don't forget that this should be connected following the dart legs on the under bust point. Okay, so once I am done marking out these, I'm going to connect it into the waist line just like this. Okay, and equally connect to 1 inch below the bust point. Okay, so you guys, you can see that our bustier is coming out. All right, and I'm just going to go ahead and blend the line to avoid any form of sharp curve. Now you guys, I'm going to be providing an extra dart because this is a Victorian corset, and with a Victorian corset you are free to add up multiple darts to different parts of your corsets. So in this case, I'm going to go to the under bust point and add 1.5 inches, and then go to the waistline and add 1.5 inches. And once I am done with this, I'm going to go ahead and connect it just like this. Now, because of this 1.5 inches that I have added, I'll come over to the under bust points, and on the dart leg of the bustier and the side panel, I'm going to go ahead and measure what I have right there, divide it into 2 and mark out the middle. Once I am done marking out the middle, I'm going to go ahead and use my straight ruler and connect it into a straight line just like this. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and connect my armhole because I totally forgot. And then you guys remember that I added 1.5 inches for my multiple darts. So on the under bust points, I'm going to go ahead and mark out half an inch on one side, okay, and on the other part I'll mark out half an inch. In total I've been able to remove 1 inch, okay. So I will repeat the same thing on the waistline, half an inch on one part and half an inch on the other part, and I'll go ahead and connect it like this and then into the chest line just like this, okay. I'll equally go down and connect into the hip line just like this, okay. Now remember that it's 1.5 inches that we added and we've been able to remove 1 inch, okay. Now going back to the center front, I'm going to equally on the under bust point coming by half an inch and on the waistline coming also by half an inch, and I'll go ahead and connect it just as you can see me doing like this. So guys, you can see we have been able to distribute the extra 1.5 inches that we added. We have gone ahead to distribute it into the side panel and the center panel of this our Victorian corset. Next thing I'm going to do now is to mark out my neck depth, okay. So I'm going to connect this into the chest liner with a sweetheart neck just like this, and then equally connect into the armhole just like this. So I'm just gonna use my marker pen to outline it properly well, and from there I would go ahead and add up my sewing allowance, okay. So for my sewing allowance, I'm making use of 1.5 inches. Once I am done with this, I'm going to go ahead and connect all the lines together, and once I am done with all of this, next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and mark out my basque shape, okay. Now what you're going to do is on the waistline you're going to go down by 3 inches from the side panel, okay, and going over to the front, okay, center front, you are going to go down still from the waistline by 6 inches. Now you can go lower than this, it depends on how sharp you want your basque shape, all right, but the least you can go is at least 6 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and connect from the 3 inches mark to the 6 inches, okay. And what I'm going to do next is go ahead and start from the inside, okay, to mark this out because I was supposed to actually remove my seam allowance before I do this. So I'm going to correct this right now. So the actual line we are going to follow is the one I just marked out, okay. Neglect the previous one, all right. Now I'm going back to the shoulder. I'm going to add up my shoulder allowance, all right. But first of all, I'm going to cancel the one outwards so that you guys can relate to what I am trying to explain. I'm going to still use my marker to make it very prominent, all right. Now go back to your shoulder, add up your shoulder seam allowance of half an inch, and then you mark it out. Okay, so after I'm done with this, I'm going to use my marker to indicate the line you are supposed to follow, okay. So just bear in mind that the first line is actually a mistake. All right, so this is the one you are going to follow. All right, so yeah, this is what we have right now. I'm going to cancel out the that so that you know that I'm going to cut out all this. I'm going to cut it out. All right, and then once I am done with this, we are going to label. Okay, so please endeavor to do this. I have the center front, I have the middle front, and I have the side front. Okay, so I usually use an arrow to indicate where I'm going to be joining together. Okay, so you can see what I did right there. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut out. This is very simple. It's not going to be difficult for you. Just glue your eye to the screen, okay? And you're going to get it. Now, you guys, if you actually want, you can go ahead and add up all your seam allowances on fabric. That is when you are cutting on fabric. But for this particular tutorial, I added every of my allowance on the pattern, okay? So whichever it is that you want to do, it's up to you. So guys, here I forgot to cut out the dart on the center front. You can see, please do well to cut it out. All right. So guys, we are done with the front. Let's move over to the back. I have my fresh pattern paper with all my lines outlined. What I don't have here is the under bust point, because for us to draft out the back block, we don't need the under bust point. All right. And I equally do not have a zipper allowance here because I'm going to be making use of a loop. Okay, you can see I have the shoulder line, chest line, bust point, waistline, and the hip line. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to mark out my back neck width and the depth. For the width, I'm going to make use of 3.5 inches, and for the depth, I'm going to make use of 1.5 inches. I'm just going to square up this line and use my curve ruler to connect my neckline. So now once I am done with this, go ahead and connect your neckline into the shoulder slope just like this, and go ahead and divide your armhole depth into two. So whatever you have, mark out the middle and then come over to the bust point line and divide your nipple to nipple measurement by two. Okay, add up half an inch for stitching allowance. So I went ahead on the bust point to mark 4.5 inches down to the hip line. Okay, now going back to the chest line, go ahead and draw your line across like this, and from the chest line you're going to go down by 1 inch. Okay, that is basically where our dart for the back usually starts from. Okay, so you can see from the chest line I came down by 1 inch, and from the hip line I'm going to go up by 2 inches. Okay, you already know that is where our dart usually stops. All right, so now on the waistline I'm going to make use of 1.5 inches for my dart intake. Okay, but I'm going to share it equally on both sides just like this. So on the center back I made use of 3/4 of an inch, and on the side back I made use of 3/4 of an inch, and I went ahead to connect my dart legs just like this. Now from here you're going to go ahead and divide all your body measurements. So on the chest line, divide your bust circumference by 4 and add 1.5 inches for your sewing allowance. Repeat the same thing on the bust point line. Okay, mark it out and then go down to the waistline. Now on the waistline we are going to add up multiple darts. Okay, just like the front again. So what we are going to do is to divide our waist circumference by 4, whatever it gives us, add 1.5 inches for the dart, and again add 1.5 inches for extra dart intake, and again add 1.5 inches for your sewing allowance. I hope you understand this. Now go down to the hip line and then divide your hip circumference by 4. Mark it out and add 1.5 inches for your sewing allowance. Now this back might seem very funny because of the shape, but don't mind the way it's looking. It's because of this extra dart. Okay, by the time you take in this darts, the shape is going to come back to normal. Okay, so don't bother yourself about it. Now go ahead and connect your armhole curve. Okay, and then I'm going to make use of a marker to outline these lines properly well. Okay, now because of this extra dart that we added on the waistline, what I'm going to do is to, from the dart leg on the side panel, okay, I'm going to first of all remove my sewing allowance 1.5 inches and then divide what I have remaining right there. Okay, mark the middle and then connect it into a straight line just like this. Can you see what I am doing? This is very simple. You just need to pay good attention to details. Okay, so now I'm going to repeat the same thing I did at the front. I'm going to use half an inch on both sides, meaning that I'm removing 1 inch that, okay, right at the side panel. Then from here, I'm going to go over to the center panel, all right, which is the center back, and I would come in from the waistline by half an inch and then connect it into the upper part just like this and then down to the hip line. So guys, I'm going to cancel out so that you know that this is my dart which I'm going to be cutting out. Now from here, what I'm going to do next is to go ahead from the chest line, go up by 2 inches. Okay, this is for my new neck depth. Okay, this is where I want my neck depth to start, but I'm going to connect it into the chest line just like this. Can you see? Okay, so now from here, if you want a basque shape, you're going to, from the waistline, remove your 1.5 inches for sewing allowance, and right from there you're going to come down by 3 inches just like this, and again from the center back, go ahead and go down by 6 inches and then you connect. But you guys, I'm still going to modify this. Okay, I'm only trying to show you in case you want a basque shape right at the back, but this is not what I want. I want the basque shape to only stop at the front. Okay, so I am going back to the shoulder. I would add my shoulder sewing allowance, all right, just like this, and then from here go ahead and cut out. So if you want yoke for your back, this is the yoke for the back, and equally if you want a basque shape, this is what it should look like. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and label. I have the CB, MB, and SB, okay, with my arrows going with them. I'm equally going to go ahead and extend all these darts, okay, to the top just like this. And once I am done, I'm going to go ahead and cut them out. Okay, so guys, this is very simple, and a Victorian corset is actually very fun to work with. It's a very interesting tutorial. Okay, so you guys simply go ahead from the CB coming by 2 inches. Okay, this is because I want my back to be open. Okay, all right, remember we are not having zipper at the back, we are going to be lacing it up. So I'm going to go ahead and come in by 2 inches, and then I would cut it out. All right. So once I am done with this, I'm going to label it again, the CB, and then use this dotted line to indicate that I'm going to be having a loop right there. All right. So guys, I'm going to now modify the waist. Like I told you, I want my own to be straight. I don't want it to have a basque shape. Okay. So I want it to stop right at 3 inches below the waistline. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it out. And yeah, you guys, this is our back panel. Okay, so guys, this is what we have. I'm going to cut it out on fabric, but then I'm going to show you guys in my next tutorial how to sew this together. If this tutorial was helpful, please endeavor to give it a thumbs up, share to get more people to see this particular video, because many might want to see it, and that way you'll be supporting the growth of this channel. Subscribe if you haven't done yet, and turn on your post notification to get notified once I upload a new video. I will see you in my next one. Bye.